Developing an open-world RPG has been an interesting process, to say the least. Between having to create a compelling story that keeps players interested no matter where they go or which area they tackle first, there are tons of other factors to consider when creating a fun experience for your players. It's been a while since we've had a full Monster Tribe Devlog video. Let's go back a few months to catch you up to speed. After the Monster Tribe Kickstarter had come to an end, we had to start developing the game's closed alpha for our backers to get access to playing the game in an extremely early state. With this being our first real test of the game, we had to make sure that the majority of our mechanics were actually functioning. Whether they are polished or not is besides the point, but we had to get some kind of representation to show others what our game is all about. In preparation for this alpha test, we have features like catching, leveling, and battling with your monsters in a team-based combat system, resource collection, side quests, and some interesting NPCs to fill out the world and give a slight meaning to your journey. The problem is that there isn't really anything to actually do in this demo besides running around, battling random monsters, and catching fish. I think you get where this is going, so let me just cut to the chase. We needed some kind of overarching objective for our demo to encompass. This is where I bring to you Monster Tribe's dungeon level development. Growing up, I spent a lot of time playing Nintendo games. There was something magical about how these games were brought to life, but two franchises that always stuck out to me were the Pokémon games and the Legend of Zelda series. The reason I bring this up is that I find it a lot easier to make games when you feel inspired by the influences around you. Creating an open world RPG in 2021, you would be silly in not taking inspiration from this masterpiece that is Zelda Breath of the Wild. The main elements I want to pull from this game are the segmented story elements, having the game feel real and alive no matter where you end up or what location you tackle first, but also in how they implemented their shrine mechanics. In the game, there are shrines littered all over the overworld where you can complete small objectives to receive some kind of reward for your efforts after completion. Monster Tribe will feature a similar mechanic, having small dungeons emerging around the island for acquiring special items, new resources, or maybe even some special monster DNA for collecting rare monsters. Well, the first thing to do was design the actual dungeon sprite. For a while, I had been using this bootleg tower that was initially designed as the Monster Tribe logo, but obviously this design doesn't really fit our aesthetic anymore, so I had to remake the dungeons entirely. Don't get me wrong, I will still be using a very similar design for the real towers of the game as seen in the game's main splash art. However, I wanted to create a bit more of a technologically advanced design for the pop-up dungeons. With that in mind, I used some inspiration from our other elements in my game, such as the spiritual totems, to create this. Now that we have the dungeon sprite for the overworld, it's time to start designing the interior. For the dungeon interior, this was a bit of a challenge to figure out how to create something that felt spacious and open like the main game, but still an interior. I decided on taking some inspiration from the cave levels of our game, creating shallow walls and a basic blank textured ground with some rubble, pebbles, and cracks in the floor to show the flow of energy in the dungeon areas. Putting it all together in game, we have this maze-like industrial design. I would still love to add more to this atmosphere by creating something similar to what you would see in other indie games' dungeon areas, having the entire level encompassed in some kind of darkness to signify areas the player cannot interact with, making the entire zone feel more closed off and isolated. Until then, I started working on the next main objective of the dungeons. The Dungeon Totems will be used as interactables to create more puzzles and challenges for players to avoid speed running through the dungeons with no real hazards or obstacles. These totems act as our game's switches. Interact with the totems to open gates to continue your progression through the area. We have the blue totems, which would work as a basic gate deactivation switch. Purple totems, which would be timed switches where you have to make it past the assigned gate before the time runs out. A red totem, which can only be activated after all of the monsters have been eliminated in the designated area. And green switches, which currently don't have a use, but I thought they looked cool and I like colorful things, so I got sidetracked and wanted to make some kind of other. Anyway, if you have an idea for more Dungeon Totems, you can let us know in the comment section below, but moving on, it's time to get this dungeon working properly in-game and adding the actual hazards, gates, and particle effects to the scene. We've got gates, which are being created using a very easy invisible collision box, spawning particles out of the radius out of where the gates are active. Then we have more particles flowing through the air to once again show off the flow of energy in these places. And then we add in some treasure around the dungeons to give people an incentive to explore and take their time running through these challenge rooms. In the current demo, there are 2 dungeons to explore and complete, each having a boss fight at the end, which will be a true test of the player's abilities. These battles are no joke, so good luck to all of our playtesters, because you kinda need it. With all of the main features being in our game, there is still a ton to do in development, including actually making the real story and the 9 unique zones the game will have, adding more monsters, attacks, quests, possible cutscenes. Oh, yeah, I guess we really do have an entire game to finish in 6 months. That's an issue for another day. Let's sidetrack my overwhelming anxiety with adding some unneeded redesigns for this game that never actually gets anything complete until it's redone, 7 times. First up is the pause menu. The current pause menu is alright, and we definitely aren't completely redesigning this. However, I felt it needed something extra, so here is the new mock-up of our pause menu. Again, not being something that is fully complete, I find that as far as UX design is concerned, efficiency goes a long way, so associating all of our buttons in the main pause menu with visual logos and colors will help to create a much easier experience over trying to read these buttons over and over. It might seem insignificant, but when players are constantly opening up these menus dozens of times in a playthrough, your brain is continuously subconsciously trying to read everything in your main line of sight. Assigning colors is an easy way to get your brain to make connections a lot quicker and make your life a breeze going through menus with less misclicking on going into the wrong menus because you aren't constantly reading these buttons every time. We did the same kind of subtle adjustment in the DNA menus, however, I couldn't think of what to do with these large, wide buttons, so I kept the text for now, but still assigned specific colors for each button and changed the background to fit that color, so over time these colors will be adapted more and more with that connection process I was talking about earlier. Now it's time to discuss the most exciting part of the day. If you guys are a part of the Discord server, you will probably already know what I am referring to, but if you are not, first of all, what are you doing? Get in there. It's a pretty cool place. But besides that, I decided to tweak or completely overhaul every single monster in the entire game. Yeah, I know, I'm literally nuts, but my skills have been continuously improving over the past year of developing this game and trying new styles and challenging myself in different ways, so I decided some of the older monsters needed a nice redesign. From cool reworks like Polygon and Malbrek getting completely remodeled from the ground up, to lesser fixes like adjusting the lighting to monsters like Stoport and Bayava to give more depth and roundness to the designs, every monster got a slight tweak like this. If you would like to check out all of the major reworks I've been doing, go in the description and shoot me a follow on Twitter to stay up to date with the game's progression, and join the Discord server to check out the updated bestiary where you can view all of the visual improvements, read through the monster biographies, and learn all about these creatures to enrich your knowledge on the game's lore and atmosphere. Thank you so much for giving this video a watch right until the end. I appreciate you watching this devlog and continuing to support my channel and games development. You guys are the best, and I will make sure to share more updates very soon. The game is still far off from being finished, so I will be taking more time to focus on finishing this project and focusing the YouTube videos going forward on quality over quantity. Until the next one, check out some of the fan art we have been getting from our Discord community. It's awesome seeing what you guys can make, so thank you for all of your submissions, and I hope to see more very soon from the Discord server.